But the Romans realized that if there was a major emergency, having a separation of power, having debate and compromise, you might not have time to do that. To this end, they wanted somebody who could dictate or tell everybody what to do. Emergency could be a war. Rome is about to be invaded by an outside force. A famine, extreme food shortage. People are dying of starvation. A plague, a disease is sweeping through Rome and the empire. So if there's a major emergency, you wanted one person to make the decisions. To this end, the Roman Senate could name a dictator. A Roman dictator had pretty much absolute power. What they say, what they dictated had to be done. But the catch was that they were only supposed to have that power for 6 months. And then they had to surrender it back. And then they couldn't have it again within their rules. Now, on a good end, we see there are some people that, if they're named dictator, did great. Like Cincinnatus, who might be more of a legendary figure, but he's often held up as the model of a noble dictator in Rome. He was at one point a senator, then he got disgruntled, went back to working a farm, was working on his plow. He was often shown holding a plow. And the Romans were invaded by an outside force from the east. And they turned to Cincinnatus because he was such a fair leader to help them through this, to dictate what to do during this war. He acts decisively. He wins the war within a couple months, long before his 6-month term as dictator was over. And once the emergency is over, he voluntarily gives up power. So he's seen as a role model in Rome and often held up as a model of civic virtue, being willing to sacrifice power for the sake of the people in order to maintain the people having control. There's even a Cincinnati Society that George Washington was a part of. He's often held as being like Cincinnatus. Washington, after the American Revolution, voluntarily gives up all the power that he had as the commanding general and turns it back over to the Congress, to the people, similar to what Cincinnatus does. So here we see a statue of Cincinnatus in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is named after him. You see he's holding his plow, and the other thing he's holding is a fasci, which is a bundle of sticks united together with an axe. And it's the whole idea is that it's unity in strength. We often see that Roman consuls would hold the fasci as a symbol of their power, that uniting together were stronger. Unfortunately, the fasci will be co-opted by fascist governments in the 20th century who wanted to have absolute power and absolute control. So it's no longer has the same symbolic meaning. We're going to see that there was a big fear of dictatorship in Roman history. And there's been numerous times throughout Roman history where they have to stand up to dictatorship to preserve and save the republic in order to say that the people have a say in their government. The last reading talked about Cicero. I thought it was real important to mention him. Cicero is widely renowned for his contributions to writing, philosophy. He is seen as one of the great senators and law minds of human history, frankly. And he was a strong defender of the idea of separation of powers, that we should split up the government and that no one person should have too much power. Cicero himself led a resistance to a group of powerful aristocrats who were looking to put in place a permanent dictatorship. He, in fact, even had the would-be tyrants executed publicly. Thus, the famous Latin phrase, sic semper tyrannis, thus always to tyrants. If somebody would be a tyrant, they should be put to death, at least according to Roman rules. Sadly, we're going to see, as we get more into the history of Rome, that the Roman Republic will eventually no longer be a republic. It will be a dictatorship, a tyranny ruled by one person. an emperor when it comes in the time period of the Roman Empire. And unfortunately, Cicero himself will be eventually executed by a would-be dictator in Mark Antony. All that comes to play with the rise of Julius Caesar and the Roman Civil War, which we will talk about soon. Anyway, let's get to your question. So what I'd like you to do is describe in your own words what the term separation of power means, and I want you to do a little analysis. We talked about why the Romans thought it was good to have a dictator during a time of emergency, but why might it be bad? Might somebody not be willing to give up power once they have it? I don't know. So I'd like you to write out your thoughts on both of those questions in the comment underneath. Hope you are having a marvelous day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.